100% agree with respect for a moment of silence and reflection for our friend and former colleague for our school and our community, Mabel Galoo. Thank you, everyone. So, Dr. Sheboy, we're going to go to the Ford School first, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think Mr. McElduff wanted to present for HFIS first. Is that right?
Oh,
Mr.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Wait a minute, hold on. Mike, are you still in the building?
What's that? Yes, I'm still in the building. No, my wife doesn't like that decor that's behind me, so it's definitely still.
I didn't think so. So yes, please go first so you can get home, please. Yeah.
She's not a fan of the shades, so she's
I get it.
my office many times. So
okay, go ahead. Go for it.
So let me just present my screen, and hopefully I don't do this wrong. Here we go. All right, can I get a thumbs up when you see it? All right, very good. I only see 70 of you, so I'll take the 5 that I saw. Great, awesome. All right, so first and foremost, I want to thank the Board of Ed and Dr. Sheboy for giving me a chance to talk about our academic program at HFIS. This is my 5th one, which is exciting, and I'm still just as nervous as I was the first time. I did decide to stay at school just because my 4-year-old and my soon-to-be 2-year-old have put on quite a show at board meetings and other meetings they've been a part of by jumping in front of the camera, waving, unplugging a router. That's a true story. They did unplug the router a few weeks ago. So I thought it was safest to be here, even though both my screens just went out about 5 minutes ago and I had a mini panic attack, but we're okay. So technology, what are you going to do, right? So, so our goal has been and always will be to challenge, engage, and empower our students to be successful. That's our vision. That's our mission. Over the past 5 years since I've been in the district, we've implemented Readers Writers Workshop for pre-K-8, implemented Foundations pre-K-3, revised our math curriculum for the middle school, and made a conscious effort to provide science and social studies in our elementary programs. And this is on top of what Dr. Theodore and Mrs. Magyar have done with our technology program, Stream, adding resources and just a plethora of support for our students and for our staff. And the data was beginning to show improvements across the board in ELA and math. Make no mistake about that. We were making tremendous gains in most areas. We still needed to make a lot of gains in other areas, and we flatlined in a couple, but the data does show that we were going in the right direction. COVID came and has had some other ideas, and it's really pushed back on our efforts to continue to educate the students at the Highland Falls Fort Montgomery Central School District. But we're not letting COVID stop us. We just are finding different ways to educate our students. So, however, one positive thing COVID has done, if you can find a positive out of COVID, it has made HFIS, and I know the other 2 buildings as well, is to look at and rethink how we are educating our students on a social emotional level. And that's kind of where I want to take our academic program tonight. For the past 4 years, I've been talking about all those great things that I mentioned a few minutes ago, but I wanted to reflect and talk about what we're doing at our building to support our students both socially and emotionally, as well as our faculty and staff. Okay, so SEL, why is that important? So educating our students is by far the most important thing we do, but the social emotional component is right alongside of it. I truly believe that. We are raising the future, and it truly starts and ends with the social emotional component. We are in the business of changing lives. I saw that quote somewhere, and it resonated with me because that is why many of the people who are in this room, many of the people who are watching, and all of the people in our buildings got into education was because we wanted to change children's lives. And thinking about that, the SEL component and where it really starts, it starts in kindergarten. We're pre-K, but I'll start with kindergarten because Mrs. Perry was a longtime kindergarten teacher in our district, and many districts have a Mrs. Perry who taught kindergarten, and those foundational skills of being nice, sharing, saying you're sorry, Those are important skills and things that we begin to educate our students and teach our students, right? And then I was thinking about high school graduation and thinking about what they say at the valedictorian speeches and the salutatorian speeches. And a lot of it is giving thanks, being grateful, and appreciating all the people that are around them. And it really comes full circle, social emotional. It begins with kindergarten, sharing and playing nice, and it ends at high school graduation where they're thanking the people that helped them get there. And so when we talk about social emotional, we're talking about that foundation, right? That pre-K kindergarten, building that safe and positive learning environment for our students to grow, boosting student achievement. That is another thing SEL does, increases pro-social behaviors such as kindness and empathy, things that we want all our young men and women to have. It improves our students' connections and commitment to schools, and it is proven to reduce stress. The long-term benefits, there's a list of them, but increase the likelihood of graduation, the readiness for post-secondary education, successful careers, so on and so forth. And this is so important to what we're doing now more than ever because of COVID, is that social emotional aspect. So one thing that we have focused on at HFIS for the past 6 years is the Positivity Project. And I know prior to me getting here, I believe there was a presentation on it, or even my first year, but I think I was just so nervous I wasn't paying attention to it when I was at the fort. But the Positivity Project, its vision is to empower America's youth to build positive relationships and become their best selves. I mean, that screams social emotional learning. And this has been in our building for 6 years. And I read a lot of articles over the summer and continued reading articles about reopening schools and tools to success, and everything started with social emotional. Every article out there. NICET even has a whole section just dedicated to social emotional learning. And that really resonated with me. And also, I think in January or February of this past year, we had some middle school students present and talk about how our middle school was, or how HFIS was. And one thing they talked about is they missed the Positivity Project, and they thought it was important, and they wanted to see more of it. So with the combination of COVID and our students advocating for it, we've made a conscious effort to put it in every class every morning for 25 to 30 minutes for morning meeting. And I know the other buildings are doing similar things around social emotional, but really the Positivity Project, focuses on those 24 character traits. We look at one every week, and we focus on that with videos, slideshows, conversations, and really building a family atmosphere with the students. And so, we already had it in the building. We just needed to make it bigger. And this year, COVID, unfortunately, gave us that opportunity to do that, and our teachers are doing an amazing job. I want to kick it over to Mrs. Maldonado to talk a little bit more about this.
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was like panicking because right when Mike was talking, I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself because I'm using these and turned it off. All right, so a little bit about the Positivity Project. Briefly, the Positivity Project this year has, as Mike mentioned, has taken a different spin because it's in every classroom and morning meeting every morning. So we decided to do this video a few weeks ago, putting together just a quick video of what is important to the students in Positivity Project and what is one of their character strengths. So it's a quick video that our students put together. I started a thing that's called Minute with Miss Maldonado, so I'll shoot the students an email every maybe 2 weeks. And this happened to be one of the emails that I sent them about 3 weeks ago. And the challenge was to record a 30-second clip on the Positivity Project and a strength. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that. Mike, can you play that? Sorry.
I've learned a lot of things from the Positivity Project, but the thing I learned in forgiveness is that forgiving somebody means letting go of the pain and letting go of that situation. It doesn't mean you will let go of the idea and thinking of it, but you won't think of it as much. And the traits I think I have most is leadership and creativity.
What I love the most about the Positivity Project is how they show like different character traits that people can like use to change their personality, and how they can show the same traits to other people to make them like feel happy and like to make them their day better.
What positivity strength that I'm good at is creativity and humor. I'm good at these, and here's an example. Here's a drawing that I drew, and a joke for you. What do you call stacked cats? A mountain. Ha ha ha. I'm Brandon Florent, and thank you.
I like Positivity Project because we get a lot of new character traits, and we can learn from them, and we could like try to do those character traits too and be better in our life.
My favorite thing about the Positivity Project is that we get to learn about all these new traits, and it'll help us later in life to be kind, and it'll help us a lot with school sometimes and being nice to others, and that's my favorite thing about the Positivity Project.
What I like about the Positivity Project is that we can all work together on it and as teamwork, and we can all learn how to be kind to each other and like learn like the other people's mindset.
The thing I love about Positivity Project is that there's more than one trait, and my favorite trait is love, because everywhere you go, love is following you everywhere, even if you're at school or at home or in public. So that's the thing I love about Positivity Project.
I just like how they do it. My favorite part is the humor.
My Positivity Project strength is optimism.
All right, so we're supposed to talk about the Positivity Project. What I would. So anyway, I could have kept going, but I'm going to stop because I don't like to hear myself talk, and I don't want to put you through me talking twice. So, Mrs. Maldonado.
I think that was a good way of ending the night, but I think that what you said is really powerful. And seeing you, I did share the video with our students, so I think it was really powerful also seeing the principal in the video, and they were really excited to see each other in the video. And I told them that it would be just one of a few videos that we'll do throughout the year. But the other important piece of SEL at HFIS is not just focusing on our students, but also focusing on our staff and our faculty. And Ms. Nichols is going to talk a little bit about how we're approaching that this year.
Thank you, Mrs. Maldonado. And Mr. Mack, I'm not sure if
We're
you're
just
going
having some technical difficulty.
Sure. I'll just wait a second. While he is getting this slide up, Ms. Hannigan, the 3-5 school counselor, and myself spent a lot of time this summer reflecting and thinking about how we could best provide support, not only for our students, but also for our faculty and staff and our families. It's on the slide, but we saw a quote this summer that really kind of struck us, and it said, we believe that healthy families plus healthy teachers equal healthy students, which is ultimately the goal. So we developed what we call Wellness Wednesday, where we push out specifically self-care tips and tricks to our students, our families, and our faculty. We started with self-care because we believe that's the most important thing that anyone can really do for themselves. And we push it out every week to our faculty via email. We send it home to our families on our class dojo, and we share it with our students on our school counseling Google Classroom pages. Both Ms. Hannigan and myself have a school counseling Google Classroom page for all of our students in grades 3 through 8, where we also provide additional information. as we were talking about this presentation, instead of just talking about Wellness Wednesday, we decided that we would share with you an example of Wellness Wednesday. This is actually where we talked about what is self-care and why is it important. And I felt that this was not only a good example, but also a good reminder for all of you as well to keep in mind that self-care is very, very important. So if you want to play that, Mr. Mack.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a shot again. We had some technical difficulties a few minutes ago, so fingers crossed.
Hi, and welcome to the second edition of Wellness Wednesday. Today, I wanted to take a few minutes to review what is self-care and why is it important. If you have ever flown on an airplane, you've probably heard the flight attendants remind everyone that in the event of an emergency, to put on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. This phrase might be confusing to some, especially a parent or caregiver. We spend so much of our energy helping other people. Why is it so important to put our own mask on first? The answer is simple. You cannot care for others before first caring for yourself. Another easy phrase to keep in mind is you cannot pour from an empty cup. By making sure that our cups are full, we ensure that we are able to pour from our cup, giving caring and kindness to others. Self-care refers to all the different ways we fill our cup. Self-care can look different for different people. It's all about finding what you need to fill your cup. There's physical self-care, which might look like going for a run or a walk after a long day. Physical self-care might also involve getting enough sleep or stretching after sitting too. There's emotional self-care, which can be practicing kindness with yourself or offering yourself some compassion. Social self-care is also important. This could be making time to visit and laugh with family or friends, and might also mean setting boundaries and saying no to others when you need some time alone. Time alone ties into spiritual self-care, which can be meditation, practicing deep breaths, or writing in a journal. Again, it's all about finding what works best for you. This information might be new to you, or it might be a familiar reminder. Either way, our hope is that you will start thinking about the different ways you can practice self-care. Tune in to Wellness Wednesday next week, where we will provide a specific example of a self-care activity you can try. Our hope is that it will help you fill your cup.
Always so awkward to listen to yourself speak. But that's an example of what we send out. They're short videos, and what we've gotten back is that people have been enjoying them. So that's our Wellness Wednesday. And now I'm going to kick it over to Miss Imtiaz, our school psychologist, who's going to talk about other ways that she's been supporting our faculty this year.
Good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing? Very nice. So, throughout the year, we've been talking about what we're going to do to support our students, how we're going to support their social and emotional health. But one thing that we also wanted to hone in on was how are we going to support our faculty and staff? Back in April, I read an article, and I shared this with our faculty too. The article talked about, it basically took a deeper look into the emotional lives of teachers. Thousands of teachers responded to a survey where they were asked to describe the 3 most frequent emotions they were experiencing on a daily basis. And the 5 most mentioned feelings among all teachers were anxious, fearful, worried, overwhelmed, and sad. And honestly, I wasn't surprised because we have been tirelessly striving to meet the academic needs of our students via distance learning, while also trying to maintain a sense of balance within our own lives and homes. So that's when the mindfulness classroom was born, I guess I could say. We really wanted to kind of find a way to reach and teach faculty and provide them avenues and ways to practice techniques that could alleviate the stress and sense of fear that they may be experiencing with all this imbalance that the pandemic has brought. For those of you that don't know that much about mindfulness, or may not have been exposed to as much, it's a form of meditation that has origins in Eastern philosophy and Buddhism. There's no necessary religious component to mindfulness. Anyone with any belief system can enjoy the benefits of mindfulness, which is also why it is such a highly recognized practice, especially within the realm of mental health. Mindfulness has been shown to have lasting positive effects on mind, body, and soul, with benefits that only increase with practice. If anyone's been following what I've been writing in the classroom, it's like I'm constantly like, it'll take some time, just keep practicing it. It's not a 5-day thing or week thing. It's kind of like the 21 days forms a habit kind of a deal where, you're gonna see gradual and then, like a spike of, positive energy within you. So, really what we've been doing, Michelle and I, my partner, the other school psychologist, we've been sharing resources on mindfulness once a week within the classroom. Our goal is to offer faculty and staff ways to combat stress, relieve anxiety, and reach a state of relaxation during a time of course, heightened fear and uncertainty, because things are changing on a day-to-day basis, as you all know already. The resources that we've been sharing in the classroom include, guided meditation videos that allow staff to practice mindfulness. We post articles that educate and provide research on the practice of mindfulness, as well as its significant positive impact on our mental and physical health. And then through our weekly posts, we aim to encourage and motivate staff toward building consistency in practicing mindfulness so that they can maintain a sense of emotional resilience and balance. I wanted to just share a few of the things that we've talked about over the course of the last few months in the classroom. We've talked about mindful walking, so not just walking on autopilot, but really, actually enjoying the walk through the use of each of our senses. We posted a video on mindfulness coffee meditation, so which is a perfect example of how this technique can be incorporated into really any activity that is part of our daily routine. We did mindful baking. We've talked about how to use mindfulness to move forward with a sense of purpose and resilience during a global pandemic. How to use mindfulness practices to alleviate feelings of fear, stress, disruption, and imbalance that the pandemic has created, especially for those of us that work in the field of education. And then even tips for how to be a mindful family that staff can take back to their own family, techniques and skills that they can use with their own families to make the time with them richer, deeper, and more peaceful. So that's really been the initiative through the mindfulness classroom, and we're going to continue moving forward and providing that to staff. So Mike, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, throw the baton back at me. All right. So great. So that is the end of our presentation at HFIS. I just want to publicly thank the HFIS faculty and staff for going above and beyond for the past 8 months. They are really doing an amazing job, and I stole your word, Dr. Sheboy. Day in and day out, they are just, they're rock stars on how hard they're working, and the fact that Ms. Imtiaz and Mrs. Nichols and Mrs. Van Zetta are taking time to help recharge the students, but also the faculty and staff, is just one way we can better support our staff and faculty, because they really are going above and beyond every day. And I can't thank them enough. And I have to thank Stefan, Keith, Mrs. Magyar, and Andrea, because technology, as you saw multiple times, is a fickle thing, and it's very frustrating, and a lot of times that gets taken out on our IT department, and Mrs. Magyar and Dr. Tador, but we wouldn't be here without them. So I truly have to publicly thank them, because they are just so great to our building at HFIS. They really are. And Mary Papa, obviously, she's been riding solo, but she keeps this building together and keeps me in line. I just want to thank the people that are keeping HFIS up and running, because it's very important. And obviously, Ms. Imtiaz, Ms. Nichols, and Mrs. Van Zetta, they make such a great support system, not only for the faculty, staff, and students, but for myself and Mrs. Maldonado. And none of them are afraid to push back on an idea or some harebrained thing that comes in my mind. They're always willing to say no, or that's not a good idea. And those are the people you need in order to make a building run, is people that aren't afraid to push back, and also a lot of laughter in those meetings as well. And finally, Mrs. Maldonado, nobody in this room knows how hard she's working. She has gone on more home visits, brought more McDonald's to students, the nutritional section, obviously, to get them to log into classes, to connect with families, to connect with our students. She is the light at the end of this tunnel for this building. So I'm not an emotional person, but Yashira, thank you so much for everything you do for our kids, because nobody in this room really knows how hard you work every day. And she is definitely not afraid to push back on me or yell at me when I do anything right or wrong. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Board of Ed. Thank you, Dr. Sheboy. And I'm going to turn off my mic now.
Thank you, Mike.
That was an absolutely fantastic presentation. So thank you all very, very much. It was great. So thank you. Very, very informative. And again, we know how hard each and every one of you are working, and we all appreciate it very, very much. It certainly doesn't go unnoticed. We wouldn't be where we are today. We really wouldn't be. So thank you all so much. So Miss Rachel, is it your turn? Okay.
Oh, sorry. I got a little happy with the mute button. It is our turn. Thank you, Mr. McElduff. That is a very difficult presentation to follow. The work that you guys are doing at HFIS is absolutely incredible, and I am honored to be part of a team that you and Yashira are on. Stop it. So, so without further ado, I'll share our presentation. Just give me 1 second to get into my my presentation. Okay. I hope that you guys can see. I only have the one monitor, so I'm imagining you can see me. So with me this evening, I've brought a couple of our incredible faculty members. Mrs. Lennon is here, Mrs. Franchini is here, Mr. Craven is here, and Mrs. Granada is here with us. And they are representing the incredibly challenging but rewarding work that the entire faculty and staff at FMES is doing. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about what our next normal is. And in the previous presentations, we shared a little bit about what the academic work looks like at FMES and the work that the teachers are doing and what the students are doing as well. So this is a little bit about what our old normal looked like. And this is March 13th at 2:54 p.m. and prior to that. So students were sitting together at tables, partners were sitting side by side to work together, teachers were meeting with small groups of students were sharing materials, students sat in groups in the cafeteria. Recess and lunch were just one period, and it was 45 minutes in length for everything. So they had to kind of shove food in their mouth and then put their jacket on and go outside, or come inside from being outside and quickly eat before the period was over. And students had just one block of time to use their Chromebooks, maybe 3 times in a 6-day cycle, maybe more, depending on what the day looked like. On March 13th, our whole world was essentially flipped upside down. And we couldn't stay the same, and we couldn't go backwards. So we started to think, like, what could this look like? And Dr. Theodore and Mrs. Magyar were so integral in redesigning what this next normal was. And I recently had this thought. There's a book, some of you may know it. It's called It's Not a Box. And this book essentially it's a children's book where there's every page says it's not a box, and then on the opposite page, the box turns into some sort of magical thing. So it says it's not a box, and then it's a rocket ship, and there are children playing with the box and treating it as if it's a rocket ship. It's a race car. So they're imagining different ways that it could be. So when I was thinking about this presentation, I just kept thinking, it's not a Chromebook. It's a classroom, and we have to reimagine how we could use this classroom. We're really proud of the work that we've done to reimagine what that normal could look like for our students. Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to give our students everything that they were receiving prior to March 13th and more, because there's that human part of it, of being in contact, is missing. So giving them a little bit more was really our goal. We also pride ourselves, and me in particular, and I'm lucky to be working with a faculty that feels the same way, that we're not afraid to take risks. So I saw this quote and I just thought this really speaks to who we are. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try one more time. So we were not afraid to try something and go with it if it worked, or try something different and not just sit there and say, oh, well, that didn't work. So, well, oh, well. We keep trying. So what does the next normal look like at FMES? So I'll turn this over right now to Mrs. Lennon and Mrs. Granada. They are two of our virtual only instruction teachers, and they have done some incredible work.
Good evening. I found this picture and it really spoke to me because we had never taught virtually before, and sometimes the wind was taken out of our sails to know if we were doing the right thing. And then I saw this picture and it spoke to me because yes, we can teach them just as well as we taught them in the classroom. We can teach them just as well virtually, because Mr. Rogers and Reading Rainbow and Steve Irwin are all amazing teachers that children have watched for years via the TV. So what virtual teaching means to us is bringing the classroom feel into every student's home. So what is that? We have community circle every morning where we do work on the SEL work that Mr. McElduff had mentioned before. We still have our literacy workshops and our math workshops. We do science and social studies, and of course our social emotional learning. On Wednesdays, we do meet with small group after our community circle, and then the children do go off and work on asynchronous work so that we have meetings with parents, we have one-on-one meetings with kids, and those things include things like Zern that the district has purchased for our students, Raz Kids, we make Bitmoji Classrooms, which you'll see in Mrs. Franchini's presentation. We do iReady and math every day, and our specials for the virtual students are held on Wednesdays. So I want to take a minute to talk about what Fort Montgomery is doing with social and emotional learning. Down below, you can see a little box of books, and it's called the Windows and Mirrors Library that Mrs. Adelstein has invested in. Here, teachers can go and sign out books to present to their children. Windows means that the students can experience other families that they may have never seen before, other children they have not been exposed to before, and mirrors means that they can see themselves in these books as well. It works on empathy, it works on children's self-esteem, it works on their relationship skills. We also make a lot of connections with our students, even though we're virtual. Every teacher has gone to each child's house, and each child asks, when are you coming back? Are you going to come to my house, or can we have a tea party? Or one child just invited me to Christmas dinner today. So it's a very, very special time that we look forward to, probably about once a month, where we, if it's not to drop off materials, it's just to go and make sure that everybody's okay. Not just the students, but the parents as well. The most important thing that I tell my families is that your child in your home is socially and emotionally healthy, because there can be no learning done, especially if mommy or daddy are unhappy or stressed, and the children are unhappy and stressed. I often tell my families, we don't sweat the small stuff in this classroom. You know, if you're having a hard time turning something in, I try to make things as easy and working parent friendly as possible, because I myself am a working parent. So a lot of times my own children are on their own. So it's very important as a virtual teacher to make things kid friendly and not as much pressure on the children. A big struggle was, how are we going to connect with a struggling student? Virtual teaching has opened many opportunities that we haven't really seen before. Let's face it, this generation of kids is very tech savvy. They really oftentimes don't care about writing on paper. That's not their generation. They want to make YouTube videos. They want to record themselves. So as a virtual teacher, I try to take the lessons that I teach where they would write something. Now we're turning it into YouTube videos. So if Mrs. Adelstein will just click on the picture of McKenna below, you'll see a little clip of a how-to she's teaching us in her YouTube video.
And just really right.
1, 2, 3, action.
So, hey, it's I'm a teacher has hysteria. So, first you grab the cereal that you're using, and you're gonna put and you're gonna make what cereal you want, and I'm gonna use lesson 10. So what you want to do is make a big hole in the bag, and you may want to pour a little bit in if you don't have a lot. Okay, I'm pouring it in. That might be enough. Actually, a little bit more.
This child is doing every single step that was taught to her in the writing process, only she's doing it in a video.
So we added
Last, what do you do?
So you put your spoon in. I took a bite of one more spoon.
Oh, what do you have to be careful of?
Then you pour in the middle.
Watch what you're doing. Good girl.
Then you stir it up a little. And there you have it, your cereal.
That is the most amazing YouTube video ever. How do I stop recording? Hold on 1 second.
So thank you so much for taking a peek into my virtual classroom. Christina?
Good evening. So I think one thing that Rachel had said was when we were starting this new process this year is like we had to go through grieving. We lost the old way we were doing things. And after I was able to get over that grief and that loss, could really think about, okay, how are we going to move forward? What are we going to do in this new type of learning? I can't see it on my end. Are you on? Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So I really viewed virtual learning as a new realm of possibility. There's so many different things that we could do and new doors and windows that were open to us that weren't a possibility before. So virtual learning really has allowed for so many different things that were fun, engaging, hands-on, that they wouldn't have been able to do in the classroom with me. So one thing that we were able to do was I was able to do a mystery picture. So the image of the pumpkin is actually an interactive worksheet that I put on Google Classroom that they answered math questions for. So it started out as a blank worksheet. They had math questions, and as they typed and filled it in, it revealed the mystery picture of the pumpkin. So that was something that they really enjoyed doing that I never would have been able to do in the kindergarten classroom. Something else was really utilizing Class Dojo. So at the fort, we use Class Dojo for not just communicating with the parents, but also for the students to do work on there. So their portfolio this year has added the worksheet section, which we've been able to really use to put digital worksheets on their portfolio. So they were able to, as you can see with the C page, that's a worksheet that they were able to practice their sight words on. So every week they practice tracing their sight words, and we got them little stylus pens so they can use the touch screen and the drawing tools on Class Dojo. And they're also able, like Ms. Lennon was saying, are able to take those videos and record themselves on there. And not only can we see it, but their families can see it. So it really brings the work that they're doing and the classwork they're doing home so the families can see it, even if they're not doing the class at the same time with us. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about that we're able to do is things like scavenger hunts. So they're able to run around their homes, find different things, and still be engaging and learning. So the scavenger hunt that you can see is one that I did for foundations. So they all brought me something that started with the letter P. So we have, as you can see, a wide variety of things because they're so creative. I have pencils, panda bear, pillow, pots, peanut butter, puff doll, pistachios. Every single kid brought me something different, and they're only 5. I didn't have to help any of them with it. So this was truly amazing, and by the smiles on their faces, you can truly see how they're enjoying their learning here. Even though they're not together in person, they're very much a community of learners.
Thank you, Mrs. Granada.
Thank you.
So that's what's happening with our virtual students, and that was all happening the first 10 weeks of school also. And now with the transition for these past 2 weeks, we've got an opportunity to kind of marry the best of both worlds, or to use a little bit of Mr. Craven's language before he begins. We fused together all the amazing things that we learned about ourselves as educators, about our students as learners, using our virtual and computer-based learning with what we know and love and do really well inside the classroom. So Mr. Craven and Mrs. Franchini will share a little bit about what hybrid instruction looks like at the Fort.
Hi, everybody. If you are not a student this year, then then I'm here to tell you what hybrid instruction is, because you've never experienced anything even remotely like it. And what it is at its core is a fusion of remote instruction and traditional classroom instruction in the interest of effectiveness and safety. It is a day of school for all of the students in the class to receive instruction, whether they are in school or at home. And the introduction of virtual instruction has kind of made the students who are at home a very smooth transition. They already know what to do. And then, of course, coming back to school is just like a fish being put back into water. And the students are broken up into 2 cohorts, gold and maroon. And this is so that they can have these mirrored schedules where whatever is happening on Monday and Tuesday for maroon cohort is what's happening for gold cohort on Tuesday and Thursday, with Wednesday as a day to kind of get all of our ducks in a row and make sure that everything is caught up with, and we can fill in gaps in instruction during that time as well. I usually use it as a word problem Wednesday, always a good time. And if during our asynchronous check-ins, that's a time for us to do sort of the remote instruction in the style that Ali and Christina were talking about. And it really allows us to move the curriculum forward while also giving each child an opportunity for in-person check-ins, which is just incredibly valuable, and something that if you had told somebody that this was going to happen in March, they probably would have laughed at you. But it is happening, and it's happening right now, and it is impressive. And this is something that is completely new for 2020. This is something that nobody has ever experienced before. And as the old saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention. And I would not be surprised if there are hybrid schools after this. Of course, not with COVID guidelines in place, but this is something that's brand new, and we're learning more about it every day. And it's very interesting. And of course, like anything else, it has a learning curve, which our community has certainly risen to the challenge of meeting, and is impressive every single day. But we are getting the hang of it, and it's getting better all the time. And it's really exciting. And of course, the students coming back, I mean, they're so happy to be back, and they are more than happy to follow the guidelines and be safe and keep each other safe. And partially because they are not burdened with the perspective that we all have growing up without this for all of these years. And the students who come in school, if we say this is normal, they say, okay, no problem. Don't forget to wear your mask and wash your hands. And they are on top of it. And it's pretty fantastic. And this is something that we are going to learn a lot of when all of this shakes out and we become whatever the new normal is. We are going to reflect on this time, and we are going to learn a lot from it. And it is going to be certainly an interesting in the past as we move forward. But there's a lot to be learned from this. And I think something that we as educators have already learned abundantly is that we did not think that we thought this would be a really, really hard challenge, but our students have just adapted, and they have shown up every day to just absolutely dazzle us with what they are capable of. And I think some people have been underestimating what children are capable of, and this has certainly shown a new avenue of showing what they can do and how they can learn. And it is a sight to behold. It is quite something.
Beautiful. Mrs. Franchini, can you share a little bit about what it looks like to set up a hybrid classroom and in a safe and healthy way for our students?
Sure. Well, let me tell you, when we knew we were coming back and knew that our classroom was not going to look how it always was, right? In all the years I've been teaching, we've had, a carpet where everybody can come and gather, and, you make little nooks and crannies where the kids can get comfortable and do their work, and all different types of seating arrangements. And that was definitely something that, I had to wrap my brain around and say, we have to come up with a different way of doing things. How am I going to make this a nurturing environment, and how am I going to make it a special place? Well, something that, comes to mind is that it's not the things that are in the room, it's the people who make it. So you can be in a room with white walls all around, and if you're with your 10 best friends, it's going to be a blast, right? So I had to really, kind of think of it that way, right? So if you're looking at these pictures of the kids sitting down there, so, we had to realize that, well, they're going to only be able to sit at tables, right? 6-foot tables, 6 feet apart. How am I going to individualize everything for everybody so they can be safe, yet successful, and feel like it's a community, right? That we're together. So you can see we have, instead of cubbies, we're using laundry baskets for their things. You can see that those green and blue boxes, everybody has their own compartment with all of their own supplies. Those bins on top, those white bins on top, those are, we call those quiet bins, and there's Play-Doh in there, beads, some, alphabet and number items that they can use. So it's like a learning thing too. But yeah, it's also a soothing, quiet thing that they can do when they're finished with their work. And you can see it's open there on the left. You can see the things that are in there. And then also we've created math toolkits too. So everybody has their own math toolkit to, so they can be successful in math. But let me tell you, the kids come in and they don't care. They don't care that there's not a carpet. They don't care that there's not little nooks and crannies for them to sit. They are just so happy to come in and be together. And the love is there, and they're just thrilled. And, they tell me, I don't want to go home, Ms. Franchini. I want to stay in school. I don't want to go home. And that just melts my heart, because I feel like, you know what, we're doing something right here. It's working. It's working. Okay. So I just wanted to talk about, so that's when we're in school. But then on the flip side, we have the kids who are home on their opposite days, on their opposite cohort days, right? So we still want them to feel connected. So even though they're home, we still want them to feel connected. So this is my Bitmoji Classroom, and my colleagues, my kindergarten colleagues, and I have worked very hard on putting together our Bitmoji Classroom. And the kids absolutely love this. This is a way for them to stay connected. There's a virtual bookshelf on the first page, and it has books that we've read in class, activities they can do. We have our foundations highlighted up on top on the right, and it's interactive. If they click on the alphabet on top, it takes them to, if they click on a specific letter, it'll take them to a slide where they can practice the letter and watch a video about the letter. It's very interactive. the math as well is also interactive. There's, they can click on and do different activities. And then we were able to infuse our writing program into it as well with the charts that we're using and the steps, the strategies that we've been teaching and writing. So they are able to still do the things at home that we're doing in the classroom. And in addition, it's not posted on here, but there is a checklist that goes along with this. So when they're doing their asynchronous work, what is it that they need to accomplish before they meet with us during the day for that 90-minute block where the children are meeting with the teacher, and they know to come prepared and to have certain work accomplished before they come, so that we're ready to discuss and be productive. So it's working. These kids they're resilient, they're flexible, and they have taught me so much. So
thank you, Mrs. Franchini. So here's just a couple of pictures of what a day looks like. So the pictures that are on the left, there's some math work that's happening both in Mrs. Vithalucas's classroom and Mrs. Sousa's room. So you could see some of the hallmarks that I talked about early on in the presentation, such as use of flexible seating, is still something that we value, and we want to make sure that we implement that and use that in our regular day. So Mrs. Sousa and Miss Carroll just did it in a safe way. So all those chairs are labeled, they're cleaned at night, and they stay with those students, and they still can remain 6 feet apart while being comfortable in their classrooms. You'll see with Mrs. Vithalucas, the students are using Play-Doh to help them understand that math concept of building 10 and using a 10 frame. And so they're still getting that support of the manipulative while working with something like that. Then you'll also see the picture on the right is one of our virtual students. So we always do super fun things in school, and so Mrs. Granada didn't want to take that experience away. So this is a Halloween craft making dirt pudding cups, and so the student was following along with her classmates. Everybody had the materials. It was one of the things that Mrs. Granada was able to deliver to the students. And this is just one example. Our community circle is probably one of the most important parts of the day. And earlier in the year, I shared with the staff this notion of habit bundling, where you are doing something and you have to do something else. So why not find a way to marry those things together? So while our community circle is a time that's delineated in the schedule in the morning, you'll see that both cohorts are present, essentially. One cohort virtually, one cohort in person. The students still get an opportunity to work together and develop a relationship with one another and maintain that contact. But this work of the community circle, this work of relationship building, is something that teachers have worked to infuse throughout the day. So it's not just relegated to that morning time at 8:15. It does happen throughout the day in different areas. So in speaking about who we are, it was important to us to be able to represent ourselves in a fun and unique way. So in the very beginning of the year, I sent out a super top secret message, and I asked all of the faculty and staff to share a picture of themselves and a picture of their Bitmoji in whatever way they wanted to. So you could see just from this wall that there are such an amazing array of examples that truly represent each one of our individual personalities. So if you're ever, when we have our building tour on the 5th, you'll be able to look at them more closely. It's just a gorgeous representation of who we are. So I don't know that any of the work that we have done this year would be possible without the faculty and staff at the Fort Montgomery Elementary School. I have demanded a lot of them because I know that they can do a lot, but they've constantly, I think it was Allie who said, risen to the occasion and found new ways to engage their learners and to engage their parents. They are absolutely incredible. They collaborate with one another, and I think that there's been a lot of talk of like what's positive that's come out of the pandemic. I think that everything that we've done is positive, and one of the most powerful things that's happened is that there is a great deal of collaboration, and it's just getting stronger and stronger. Our families have also been absolutely extraordinary. None of what we're doing would be possible without their support. So their understanding of the schedules and their willingness to be able to walk away, because it is hard. You want to support your child at home and you want to sit there with them. But in the reality, if your child was in school, they would be working on things by themselves. There's the support of the teacher, there's the support of the staff members that are in the classroom, but primarily they're working on their own. And so we are so thankful for the support that our families, extended families, and community members have given to us. I also could not do anything without the support that I have of the administrative team that I work with. The advice, the conversations are just incredible, and I appreciate them so much. Denise, Dr. Theodore, Dr. Shiboy, you've all been extraordinarily supportive. And then the encouragement that we receive from the Board of Education has just been a true, true gift. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, again, another fantastic presentation. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
You're
It was
welcome.
really
You're
amazing
welcome.
to see everything that's going on, and it's so exciting.
Thank you.
And I'm
Thank
going to
you.
say the same thing again. I'm sorry I'm repeating myself, but again, we would not be where we are today if it wasn't for each and every one of you. So thank you so much, very much.
I just want to take 1
That was a
second.
real eye opener.
Thank you.
Very
Yes.
good.
Yeah, just one second to say I honest to God am in awe of all of you. And that includes your colleagues that are not on my virtual screen at the moment. One thing that I am not is surprised at all. You know, I knew that you all had it in you, and I'm so very, very, very proud to have some small little insight into all of the work that you're doing and the impact that you're having on our kids and our families. So thank you so much.
One thing I'd like to say is I think that what's going to happen in the future for our kids, because of our district, is that they're going to have a leg up on the rest of the world and the kids that they're going to be around in the future because of everything that they're getting right now from our kids. It's amazing. It really is.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Very, very proud each of us are. So Dr. Shiboy, would you like me to turn it over to you?
Yes, thank you. First off, I want to thank everybody from HFIS and FMES for a thorough presentation. I like it better when we're all together and you have children there showing also what we're doing, whether it's yoga or it's manipulatives. It's just been so many wonderful presentations, and I get the next normal or the new normal, but man, I like the old normal. Call me a dinosaur, but man, I miss our kids. So I'm going to go through my presentation if it pleases the board. I'm going to go through you know, at a pretty good pace. I'm going to stop at sometimes to highlight. So again, if it pleases the board, I'm going to begin. I'll take over the screen. Not what I meant to do, so we'll cancel that. I'm not good with technology. Okay.
I got a hammer if that will help.
It will. Okay, I believe everybody can see. Is that correct? Okay, groovy. So again, just thanks to the board for allowing us to provide this return to school update. We shifted from our reopening plan to our reentry plan, and now it's our return to school update for the board. We have been in session in our hybrid model for the last 2 weeks, starting on the 9th, and I'll have a timeline towards the end of the presentation. So we've been operating from the same guiding principles since we began our planning. I do want to highlight that there's a couple things that we have learned we absolutely need to do, and that is be flexible and responsive to changing conditions. You saw tonight that we do deliver high quality instruction to our students regardless of the delivery model. And you also heard from some of the presenters that we are very concerned and very much working every day to ensure the safety and wellness of our students, faculty, and staff. And I am not perfect, so we have always planned for progress.
We've been through these slides a few times, and I'm not going to go through them again, but we went through a lot to get to where we could reopen our schools and re-enter them. We climbed mountains, and we've come a long way since June and July and even late August. So I'm going to skip most of these slides. I'm going to stop just at a couple of them that we have as continued barriers and challenges. So again, I'll continue through. The ventilation system, most of those issues were resolved and we're in real good shape there. So we've had very few complaints. Temperature issues, that's because we have an old system for managing that, but ventilation systems are working. So that's a good thing. Again, uncertainty about requests. We've dealt with everyone that is known, and we're pretty happy about that. And this is where some of those barriers that we had have actually started to impact us. I sent a couple letters to the community this week that talked about the staffing issues we have. In one of those letters, I just referred to the fact that a high school is the most complex system that we have, and that everybody is connected in it. And a student who has 8 teachers, whether it's through lunches and study halls or other periods, plus their regular classes, so they impact 8 staff members, and they could, even with our hybrid, impact between 50 and 60 or 70 children. So when you have a positive or a confirmed positive case of COVID-19 in a high school, it doesn't take much to start to put a real need situation in place for your substitute teachers. And every one of those increases that need. And the community is probably well aware, if you've received all of our communications, that we did have a few known positives among students in the buildings at the high school, at least, and that impacted us significantly. Custodial substitute workers is another issue. Very early on, we had somebody who had a day off, so we were able to get other people. We pitched in, and it worked out. But we do need to continue to recruit additional substitute custodial workers. And again, we have a staffing agency that we will work with when we need additional nurses. The dark gradient red here at the bottom is something, again, we've learned and needed to be flexible. We did anticipate that our classes, grades, and or schools would face abrupt shutdowns. We sent letters out on last Wednesday regarding this. It was actually last Tuesday, and we sent another one out today, and it seems like I have become a very adept at writing letters. We did get a little criticism from the community that we've been sending out too many messages, and while I apologize if people's inboxes have been filled, I believe that everything we've sent, at least from the district and the buildings, has had value and that we actually needed. So I apologize if people think that it's too much, but I'd rather err on giving people too much information than a lack of information, especially when we're talking about a health situation or a global pandemic. So I apologize, but only that one person or a couple people minded it. I don't really apologize for it. We've always just wondered whether the health and safety protocols that we have put in place were going to be able to keep our children, our staff safe, and I will assert that they do. I will assert that our schools are actually very safe. I will assert that everything that we've put into place, contact tracing included, works. And that the efforts that we put in starting in, like I said, June straight up through November 6th, everything we did, all those protocols that we did not hurry through, we did not rush through, that they worked. So I'm very happy to change that to actually green as we move forward. It just took us a little bit of time to get there. Just a brief timeline of our return to school for the board, because at the end of this, I am going to provide the board with some additional information about some unknowns that have come very recent. So on the 9th, we returned to school in our maroon cohorts in all of our buildings. And then just a day later, we had a presumptive positive case in a student at the high school, which ultimately resulted in us going to back to our virtual model that Thursday and Friday. Veterans Day is a wonderful holiday to honor people who have served. A lot of us worked through it because we needed to make sure that we were putting together our contact tracing information for submission to the Department of Health. And then we ultimately were notified of a second presumptive case at that time. Again, we had already moved to a remote only for the gold cohort, but the gold cohort did return to school at the FMES and the HFIS quite successfully. And I thank Michael and Rachel for everything that they've done, along with everybody on their team for putting together protocols that worked, whether we're talking about transportation and arrival and dismissals. I mean, I've heard very little as far as negative or disruptions from all the practices and protocols. And I've been in every building and I've seen kids in the classrooms, and it's wonderful. Again, O'Neill was closed. And again, we put out substitute outreach. We deep cleaned as per all the guidance from the CDC. Thank you to Tom and his team for taking care of that. And we conducted additional contact tracing. This past weekend seemed to be a blur, but we did have the confirmation of those 2 presumptive COVID positive tests. And we sent out information to the community. We sent out, I want to say something like over the past 3 weeks, probably 11 or 12 communications from my office or Dr. Teodor's office, so from district office. We had a notice of a presumptive positive case on the 15th. The maroon cohort returned to its in-person instruction or its hybrid instruction at FMES and HFIS on Monday. Again, lack of available substitutes necessitated O'Neill to remain remote on Monday and Tuesday. Then we had notification of additional confirmed COVID positive cases at O'Neill with no additional contacts. And yesterday we did send out information to families that O'Neill would be remote through Thanksgiving due to the lack of available substitute teachers. And at the same time, yesterday morning, we had received social media information that said that some part of the community was going to be designated as a yellow zone to date, to this time at approximately 7:08 p.m. on the 19th. The district has received no official notice of that. That is concerning, but I don't know that it's all that surprising. Today we did send out notice to families about additional cases and possible exposures. And tomorrow, FMES and HFIS will be returning to their virtual instruction for instruction on the 20th, which is again tomorrow. Over the last couple of days, as I said, we have had some additional information. The County Commissioner of Health has recommended and is urging districts in the county to take a holiday pause at this time. She is concerned about the potential for large community spread as college students return home and families begin to gather. She's concerned about that through the entirety through January, and actually has put out a formal letter to the superintendents urging districts and recommending a holiday pause. Her recommendation is that districts choose one of 2 things. Either A, that districts move to a 2-week after Thanksgiving and then an interim return and then close, so basically be open for a week and a half and then close back up at winter break and not open again until after Martin Luther King holiday, or districts do what colleges have done, which is at the end of the Thanksgiving holiday, staying remote or in their virtual program through Martin Luther King Day. The additional information about the designation or impending designation of the community or the village of Highland Falls as a yellow zone creates a complication for the district. We are anticipating that. And again, I believe it is the village that will be designated as a yellow zone. And the district would have to meet testing requirements in order to reopen as a yellow zone. The requirement for a yellow zone, or the metrics that would put a district or an area in the yellow zone, is for a county our size, a 7-day rolling average positivity rate of 3% for 10 days, above 3% for 10 days. I will say that I have tried to find out what the positivity rate is for the Village of Highland Falls. I've been unable to do that. I've been in communication with County Executive Newhouse, but I have been unable to do that. And if the district is a yellow, we would be able to open only if we can provide testing, randomized testing for 20% of the student body on a rolling basis, and 20% for the next group for the next week, then 20% for the following week. That's anybody who is appearing physically to our schools.
Frank, I just want to interrupt you just before you go on. I believe at 5 o'clock tonight that the county executive announced that we're in the yellow, Town of Highlands is in the yellow zone.
Yeah, I saw that on social media as well. Again, my point is,
I think it was him, though. I think people have
Yes.
heard his actual speech today.
Yes.
Is that good enough documentation, or do you need it in writing?
well, I mean, I watched him on Facebook, so I heard him say that. So while I know that it is here, I just not received it from the office of the governor yet. So that's what I was saying, and I was hoping that we would get
But
some
can we
guidance.
react to it? Can we
Oh,
react to it or
oh,
not?
absolutely. I have to react to it because it's here. I mean, it is here, even if I
Okay,
haven't
yeah.
received it
Yeah.
yet. So,
Yeah.
and again,
So,
I've been waiting.
Before you go on, I just think it's important for the teachers while they're still on to know how heartbroken we all are after listening to all the great things that are going on in the schools. So it just breaks our heart, and we're very, we're sorry, but we have to follow the rules. And the other thing for the community, because some of them are asking, what I want everyone to understand, whether it's the Town of Highlands or it's Highland Falls, all three of our schools educate people from the Town of Highlands and Highland Falls. So
Correct.
for us, it really doesn't matter what it is.
Correct.
It affects all of us. So whatever decisions that Dr. Sheboy is going to explain now is going to be based on that determination. So thank you,
Yes.
Dr. Sheboy. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I am waiting for a joint call with the Department of Health and other newly designated school districts to talk about what those protocols are and what they would mean. So it's just, we don't have, official information yet from anybody. When I say official, again, I know it's here because I did watch the county executive, and I've been hearing that it's coming. And I did get something from the mayor. Thank you, Mayor Joe, for sending it yesterday. But that's not official information that I was expecting. I was expecting to be notified by, the office of the executive, meaning the governor's office, and that's what we were told to expect. So,
Hey, Frank.
Go ahead, please.
Sorry, this is Gabe. It's on ny.gov, microcluster area. It's very specific based on the presentation today. It gives the area. It is the Village of Highland Falls. It's from Walnut Ave north to the West Point Gate.
Yep.
So that area in the Village of Highland Falls is designated as the yellow zone area. If you go to ny.gov and click on, I think it's the microcluster zone map, it says very specific Highland Falls. Not that it matters, as Ann had said, but it is on ny.gov's website that you can find the exact area.
I emailed them both to you, Dr. Sheboy.
Thank you. Okay.
So this is basically breaking news, Frank. It's just coming out while our meeting's going on that it's becoming. And so, we're not questioning you. We're letting you know it's coming
just,
out.
It's just how fast things are changing.
It's new news every minute. New news every minute. And I urge parents to listen to this and to please understand that tomorrow, Dr. Sheboy will be doing his homework, and there'll be very important, I'm sure, decisions and things announced tomorrow as it pertains to the school. So I ask parents to please stay on the lookout and stay tuned. So go ahead, Dr. Sheboy.
Which actually, I mean, anybody on the line will get a brief preview of what my letter tomorrow is going to say. So I'm going to be making some decisions and recommendations. Ultimately, that is I'm going to let the board know what I'm intending to do, but based on the recommendations of the Orange County Commissioner of Health and given the unknowns about the yellow zone designation and its implication, I recommend, and I'm going to be implementing, that the district return to its remote instructional product effective this coming Monday through January 18th. And in my communication and sharing this plan with Dr. Gelman, who is the Orange County Commissioner of Health, her response is that it is absolutely the best course of action at this time, given the prevalence of new cases. And again, she wrote a letter to all the superintendents with her urging. I mean, that's the Commissioner of Health is urging and recommending, strongly recommending districts to close. And barring any directive from the governor related to a school closure, and pending our ability to meet any testing requirements for a return to school based on whatever zone designation, without knowing what our positivity rate is, it's hard to even forecast where we might be in January. If you are a orange or a red zone, you can't test out of that. So, but the district would resume its hybrid instructional model on January 19th.
Now, again, just so everyone understands it, that is with full support of the board, from the Board of Education to our administrators for having to make this very, very tough decision. And it breaks every single one of our hearts that's on the phone, and especially after hearing all the great things that we just heard from our schools. And but we're doing what we need to do to keep our children and our students and our faculty and our staff and our administrators and everyone that's working so hard to keep them safe. So Dr. Sheboy, Dr. Teodor, Ms. Sedera, all the principals, administrators, everybody, we thank you. We know this wasn't an easy decision. I think that we're going to find, some of them have already gone with this, our co-schools in our Orange-Ulster region, especially in the county of Orange. And we're doing what's right for our children. And believe me, we understand how hard it's going to be for some parents. It's going to be very difficult. And we understand all that. But we really, at this point, there is no choice. We have to go with this. It's what's best. So
yes, there are currently 81 cases, my understanding is, in the town of Highlands. I don't know, again, I've been trying to find the positivity rate within the village. And while I, again, will assert that our schools are safer than most other places, there is certainly the risk of community spread and propagation, which is why the county health commissioner has made the recommendation that she has. So I'll take certainly questions from the board, or if any came in from the community while we're presenting.
yeah, the one thing I did want to add to this, and I know Mrs. Crow, I think she's still on the call. While we haven't gotten official, is she? Yep, Mrs. Crow. While there hasn't been official, there hasn't been official notification quite yet from the New York State Athletic and also I believe your OCIAA. I can hear. Would you like to give us an update of what you've heard so far, and then we can ask the board what their thoughts are? But if you could tell us what you've heard so far.
Of course. We had a meeting last Tuesday, and they did decide to let low-risk sports, skiing and indoor track, begin November 30th, with high-risk sports for the winter starting January 4th. And that would have included competitive cheer, basketball, and wrestling. Now, my understanding is there is, because Newburgh and Middletown and probably ourselves, I spoke with Chris Mayo today, and they're anticipating a big change in those dates. They don't think that the November 30th date probably will happen for those low-risk sports. And him and I talked today, if we do have something And when we come back, it would be a very modified season for the winter, if at all. But everything is a wait and see. We have to wait. But I think more and more schools, as Dr. Shiboy shares from his meeting, the superintendents, many of them feel the same way, that they are going to shut down, and sports, in my opinion, would be shut down as well for the time being. And we can hopefully look at mid-January.
And I appreciate that, and I respect that 100%. And I think I'm one of 7, but I think it would be very irresponsible of me and Lawless to vote for or be in agreement with sports, any sport, low contact or high contact, starting on November 30th, when our schools aren't safe enough right now for our children to be in them. So I think we have to prioritize, put things in priority, and make decisions based on, as awful and heartbreaking as those decisions are, based on the health and well-being of our students. So I don't know if anyone else wants to pipe in and give their support or not support. Obviously, I think the decision will be out of our hands. But I want to do what we need to do to keep our students and our coaches safe.
Hey, Ann.
Yes.
Hey, I just, I agree. I feel horrible for the teachers. They work so hard to get us back into the classrooms. You said it a couple times, the work that they do, a lot of us haven't seen, and it's a lot, and it's incredible. I know it's where the students want to be, but we are seeing where the numbers are going. The science is there. I think it's almost irresponsible for us to try to continue to make it work when we see it's not. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
We got into schools and the numbers aren't getting better, and they don't look like they're getting better anytime soon. So I do agree with you and Dr. Shiboy's recommendation, and I think it's just a responsible and best decision.
Thank you, Aaron. And that's one thing this board has done, and we will continue to do, and it's to help support, explain these tough decisions that our administrators are having to make, and they're doing it with so much homework behind it. They're asking other districts, they're on meetings. Dr. Shiboy's on meetings every day, pretty much all day, with his fellow superintendents, with the county, with the state, with school board. Like, it never stops with people, and we're not making decisions just off the cuff. So I thank you all. I ask you to continue all your hard work that you are. Please don't give up. We have to look for light at the end of the tunnel. I'm praying to gosh it's coming soon. Our announcement couldn't come at a worse time after all the great things we just heard tonight, but it wasn't ours, believe me. So thank you. And Dr. Shiboy, thank you again and again.
Thank you to the board. And again, just thank you to both teams that presented. It is heartbreaking. This is a sad thing to present, and a sad decision that we're making. I don't have a better word for it. I've been in our schools. I want our kids in our schools. But I also have a great responsibility for a lot of people. So I take it seriously.
Yes.
What needs to happen now is the rest of our community needs to follow suit and pay attention to the rules, wear their masks, keep distance, so that our kids can get back to normal, so that we can get back to normal. But until people start doing that, it's not going to happen. And we all have a responsibility in that.
So, Dr. Shiboy, can you explain
numbers? And have we been able to get
go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Have we been able to get the numbers from West Point and also from the county of Putnam?
Is Colonel Larson on?
I don't believe so, but typically that's why I get confused, because typically the numbers are based on towns within a county. The Putnam County numbers are very much available, as are Rockland and every county. Putnam is seeing an experience, but I don't think per se, unless it's one of the cities, Ned, that it is that available as far as a municipality breakdown. That's why I'm having a hard time getting the numbers and the positivity rate for the village.
Yeah, and the other thing, Ned, just to understand is there's, as we all know, we have civilians living on post due to the nature of their positions. And then we have the military living on post. So at some point, the military obviously gets their tests done at Keller or some sort of military facility where it's government. So they technically do not have to, or, I'm not saying they choose not to, but they don't have to report those numbers to the state, where anyone who goes outside of West Point and goes to a local area, whether they're a civilian or someone else for a test, those numbers do. So even if you did get the numbers from West Point, I'm not sure really how accurate they would be in comparison to what ours are. So I just want to put that out there to everybody. Right now, we can only go by what the county gives us. And at the end of the day, the numbers are too high, whichever it is. To open up.
Frank, I would like the board and yourself to consider formalizing a request to the West Point leadership for the numbers. They have a responsibility to us as we have to them. And I want to see what their response is. We need the information, and it is irresponsible for them to not provide us with the information and not to provide the county as well.
So Ned, I think that the response that we got, and I wish Colonel Morrison was on, and I believe Dr. Sheboy has met with the garrison as well. If one of the students that comes to our school, they're not going to share with us the military information. That's on a need to know basis, and we don't have a need to know. But they
do have a need to know.
I don't know if the rest of the board agrees with that.
I don't want to have it said that we got verbal. I want to get a formal request, and hopefully they will act responsibly and give us a response. If they fail to do that, certain responsibilities are on them.
So can I ask the board, does everyone on the board want that information or want Frank to go forward on? Obviously, it would have to be on behalf of the board to ask for that.
Of course.
I think what it is that Ned is looking for is well above the school board station. I don't think that the information that he's looking for is specific to students, and it's the post at large. And I don't think necessarily that information A is available, or B is something that they would release, or C is something that we need in order to make our board decisions or our district decisions. So I think you're fighting a losing battle in that case. And I think that Frank and all of you are doing everything that you can to make the decisions based on the information that's provided to you from the county executive, from the Department of Health, and from the governor's office.
And let me just add this too, that I think is important, Ed, is that, and I think I shared this with you, but I'm going to share it with the whole board. Dr. Sheboy and I had a conversation with Colonel Morrison last week, was it? Or the week before? I'm sorry, I don't remember.
It was last week, ma'am.
Last week we had and he, we said we need to communicate better. You need to let us know when your school's closed, because there's a potential of cross contamination between siblings. We need to get information. And we even asked, should we go to the garrison or should we come to you as our liaison? We need better communication as it relates to the students. Do we get that? Not all the time, because they close their schools again, and we saw it on Facebook. Yeah, but I think Dr. Sheboy was starting to work with the garrison on that. Were you not?
Absolutely. And I would say that my understanding is that that was a pre-planned closing. It had nothing to do with COVID. That's what I've been informed. So
I'm not necessarily sure that I 100% agree with that, but I guess at the end of the day, we're working on, I'd rather focus on better communication than trying to get information that isn't ours. I still think we definitely, absolutely need to improve the communication. We share with them when we have cases. They need to share with us when students have cases that would affect us. But I'm not sure that I want to take time to ask Dr. Sheboy to go forward and get numbers on the military, because they're not going to give that to us. But again, if the rest of the board wants it, go ahead, Gabe.
I wanted to say,
You don't know what they're going to do.
Ned, I would agree with you until tonight, when we're going to go virtual till January. So prior to that, when we were going to bring students and educate students from the West Point Military Academy, high school age students in our school district, I believe we had a right to that information. Moving forward and being hybrid, we're now, 100% virtual, where we will not be educating students in our buildings. Not that we don't have a right to it. We don't need to know that right now. So I would not be in agreement that we need to make that request at this moment. That being said, as we get to that January 18th date, and we're to the point where we're going to try to open up on that Monday, which would be then the 21st of January, actually that's Martin Luther King, 22nd, that's when, as we get close to that date, we could reach out and maybe formulate and look for some of that information.
So again, Gabe, just to clarify, I have spoken with Colonel Roselle, she's the garrison commander, and we have agreed that to the extent that we have connected students and siblings in homes, we both know that we need to connect because we have that, that mutual need, and we have agreed that we would do that. So, yep.
Gabe, that's a point well made. However, our responsibility goes beyond merely our buildings, and our students from all of our three communities interface with each other in many ways. And in addition, the military comes off the post, civilians and military from our community go on to the post. And I reiterate my strong feeling that West Point and their leadership responsibility to our community as well, and our community and their community, as they have often voiced, are one. So that's my position. If the board doesn't want to take that position, I'd like to hear from the other board members, and then we will see what occurs.
Hey, Ned, I just want to say I 100% agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think we should have that information. I think we deserve to have that information. But I just feel like it's a silly request to ask because they're not going to give it to us. They don't give it to the county. They don't give it to the state. It's certainly not. They're going to laugh at us. We give them that request like that. So that's the only reason why I think it's a waste of time.
I don't mind being laughed at, and let them go on record with that refusal. You don't know what further reasonable, responsible requests will bring.
Okay, Jimmy.
Not on a call.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I guess it's a catch-22. I mean, I think we could ask. They're not going to give it to us. But maybe we should try to engage the county and see what the county executive's office can do to assist us with that. Maybe that's the route to go instead of just getting into a argument on whether or not they're giving us.
You told me.
And there's no change in that.
My request has actually been for student. My request has been for student surveillance information that would be reported to the Department of Health state dashboard. But my understanding is that there's not an obligation for the post schools to report into that. They have their own system, and that's how they track it. Yeah.
Listen, it's always been that way. They have their own system for everything because it's a different thing. It's the federal government. So I don't think there's a problem with asking, but I do agree with Gabe that, we have time to deal with that because we're going virtual till the 18th of January anyway.
Okay, and then Gus?
I agree with Jimmy and Gabe. And I also agree with Ned. We could ask, but since we're going to go to virtual, I think we have a little bit of time to finesse them if we could. And as the time approaches, maybe we'll get the answers that we need. But for now, I think since we're going virtual, I think it's all right.
Okay, so I think what we'll do then, Dr. Sheboy and Ned, is that we'll revisit this again in early January, right after the holidays, before we go back. We'll see how the numbers are looking. Listen, we all hear what the numbers are. We know how bad it is right now. I say prayers every day for the cadets and the people that are on there. There's a lot of them that are not well right now, and I think that let's wait and see what happens in early January. Okay. Okay, because that seems to be what the majority is wanting. Am I right? If you could just raise your hand so we know that we can revisit it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we'll revisit it in early January before we reopen.
Do we know?
I agree.
Do we know how many?
Sorry, I can't raise my hand.
Do we know how many of our students work at West Point?
Ned, what difference does that make?
I don't know what you mean, Ned. Work there.
Work. Have employment there. And therefore, possible exposure and bringing back to our community. You're entitled to your opinion, Faith. I'm entitled to mine. And we are.
She asked you, hold on a second.
I didn't assert my opinion, Mr. Popold.
We're in an epidemic
She just asked you a question, that's all. She asked you a question. What difference does it make? She wanted to understand it, that's all.
I just told you what.
Rude.
Okay. I don't think anybody here knows because we don't have a need to know how many work on West Point. So
the situation we're in tells you we need to know more than we do know.
But Ned, but where does it stop, Ned? Do you need to want to know the students' parents who work on post? Do you want to know, where I go grocery shopping? And because that could be on post or in another yellow zone area. Where does it stop? What we need to do is just send the information and the message universally about following the guidelines. End of story.
And I agree that somebody might need to know, but I don't know if this board needs that information. You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to do with it? We're already close till January. I mean, if that's what we decide to do, that's what we're looking at. Why do we need that information right now? You know what I mean? That's my opinion.
I think we've talked about this enough. We're going to revisit it. We're not saying no. We're going to revisit it in January or the end of December before school starts. By then, we'll know what's going on post, how many cadets are still here, when are they due back, and then we'll be able to take it from there and decide, and how many people are back to work on post, because there's a lot of parents that in our community that work on post, not just the students. Some of us do too. So, okay. So let me just ask, I think some members of the community, I just want to confirm for everybody, the decision to close school, in-person learning, go full remote, starting this coming Monday currently through Martin Luther King in January. So far, am I right?
Yes.
Will not is a definitive answer that the email will be going out tomorrow unless we hear something from the governor that says we're not allowed to close, or unless we hear something from the state that says you're not in a yellow zone or whatever the issue is. Am I correct at this time? Because I think they're wondering, is the board going to vote on it? Is it, or is it a done deal? I guess I think it's a done deal.
Again, I'll defer to council who happen to join the call, but it's actually the superintendent's purview to determine the instructional model. It's not changing the calendar, so.
No, so we don't need to vote on it. It's a done deal because Frank explained it tonight, unless the governor or somebody that has the authority to comes to us tomorrow and says you're not allowed to do that.
Really, I was getting at, we would open on the 19th unless we were ordered to close, is really what I was getting at.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. See, that's why we need you to clear. Got it. So, is Mrs. Pitt still on? I want to make sure that she understands, because she's going to be the one that's putting it in the paper and putting it on the News of the Highlands page and everything. So, Mrs. Pitt, do you have any questions on it?
I do not.
At this
I will go out with the decision to go at this time from November 23 through 1/19. An email will be going out tomorrow with all the information. That's just unless you hear otherwise from higher authorities that you cannot. Or should I not say that part?
What was the last part, Mary Jane?
Unless you hear otherwise from higher authorities that you cannot do that.
No, I was wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe we would be hearing from higher authorities that we would not. We have the authority right now to be remote, hybrid, or in person. So.
Okay, so that you're going full remote from 11/23 to 1/19. Details tomorrow in an email.
And that time could be extended if necessary, if needed, depending on our zone color and everything else.
Okay.
Basically starting next Monday, 11/23. Yep.
Got it.
Sorry, I really messed that up. So I want to make sure we're clear on it. So thank you, everybody. Okay. Are we ready? Denise, do you want me to do it or you got it?
I got it.
Thank you.
You ready?
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
Use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda as submitted by the Superintendent of Schools, number 2 and 3.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Does anyone have any questions on the approval of the minutes or the policy number 5676? It was a long one. We needed to read it all, so. No questions?
I want to voice my opinion on the policy. I think it's a sad day when it takes 14 pages plus pages from the additional page, a policy with regard to privacy that unfortunately is imposed upon us. And also, I'd like to say that I don't think we should share under any circumstances or under most circumstances with any third party, because third party is not going up being bound by the privacy aspects.
Any other comments? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, are there any other questions from the board to Dr. Sheboy on what, or anybody on the call? Any questions whatsoever to Dr. Sheboy or administration on what's going on in our district? Okay,
I have one. I have one.
okay, go ahead, Ned.
Assemblyman Colin Schmidt in his mailings continuously said that he had provided millions of dollars to the school districts that he are within his district. Have we received any monies of which Colin Schmidt was a direct input into making that happen?
The simple answer is the district did not receive bullet aid from the assembly in the 2020 nor the 2019 fiscal year for the state.
Correct.
Denise, am I misspeaking?
No, you are correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to read the proposed executive. Be it resolved that the Board of Education recesses into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular individual and matters made exempt under federal law FERPA, and to discuss collective negotiations under the Taylor Law, the Town of Highlands Teachers Association, teachers and aides and monitors units, the Highland Falls Custodial Association, and the Highland Falls Clerical Association. The board will not be returning to open session to take action.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
I get a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I thank everybody again for the great presentations tonight, and stay well, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a nice holiday.